The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi everyone, I hope you're doing well, and thank you for joining me this evening to review 10 Horizon features every inspector should use. My name is Brian from Horizon Support and Training, and I'm excited to be here this evening with you. If after the presentation you need my assistance, feel free to contact me at the information on screen, and I'll be glad to help. In case any of you are joining us for the first time, I'd like to take a moment to explain the webinar control panel, which you should see on the right-hand side of your screen, similar to this. At any point, you can expand or minimize the control panel by clicking this orange button. With the control panel expanded, you have access to an audio and question section. For audio, you can choose between computer audio and listen through your speakers. Alternatively, you can select phone call and use the toll-free number to dial in and listen. For questions, you're encouraged to ask questions by typing them into the question box and clicking send. Your questions will be stored until the Q&A. Although I'll be unable to provide technical support during the presentation, if you experience any issues, please notify me and I'll follow up with you after the presentation. Before we look at tonight's agenda, I want to mention that this webinar came about as a result of a recent survey asking for feedback on Horizon sent to the entire community, including all of you. And let me tell you, we received a ton of feedback. Good, bad, or indifferent, you shared your thoughts and gave us great insight into how the community feels and where Horizon stands to be improved. So I personally want to thank each and every one of you for your participation and perspective on Horizon. It means a lot to us, and it's going to help shape where we move the product in the future. As a byproduct of the survey, it became apparent that certain features within Horizon are being underutilized or are simply unknown to a number of our users. And tonight, I'm looking to change this by reviewing 10 features from the work order to report publishing that everyone should be aware of, if not use. Now folks, as this webinar is designed to cater to users of all experience levels, some of these features you might already use, and others aren't necessarily groundbreaking, but they are important for everyone to be mindful of. I'm positive that everyone will learn at least one new thing about Horizon tonight. Now, due to time constraints, we will be doing a high-level review of each of these features. But if you're interested in learning more, all you have to do is refer to our Help Center, or you can reach out to myself, and we can always coordinate a one-on-one session to explore any aspect of Horizon in greater detail together. So without further ado, let's go ahead and look at the 10 items on our agenda tonight. When it comes to the work order, we have 2 items that we're going to be reviewing. We're going to look at the log of activity, and we're going to look at how you can log a complaint callback. So when you have an issue with a client, how you can actually track that inside the work order. We're then going to move along to Horizon Mobile, and we have 2 items that we're going to cover with Horizon Mobile. The first is a new feature. It's our photo gallery option, where you can actually select photos from your phone's gallery and import them directly into the app. I'm also going to show you how you can take a photo for the title page when you're online as well as offline. We're then going to focus on the report writing aspect of the program, because not everyone will use Horizon Mobile, but everyone should be obviously utilizing the report writing screen in some form or fashion. And so 4 of our features tonight will focus on that. We're going to be reviewing ancillary reports. We're going to look at how you can add illustrations to your own items. I'm going to show you how you can edit and customize your My Items. And we're going to review how to have greater control over your database using the Show and Hide Items function. And lastly, we're going to round things off with 2 items at Report Publishing. I'm going to show you how you can create personalized cover letters, and I'm also going to show you how you can quickly select client and agent emails. So once you've entered it on the work order, you never have to re-enter it manually again. We've got a lot of items rather, on the agenda, and we've only got 55 minutes remaining. So let's go ahead and jump right into feature one. Now, feature one is our log of activity. The first feature references the log found inside of the work order, and it's exactly as it sounds. It's a log of everything that transpires inside the work order. This is especially useful for recording online contract acceptance, because in the rare event that you have some litigation issue, it allows you to prove who accepted the contract, their IP address, the terms they agreed to, and a whole host of other information. So to recap, the log of activity is useful because it gives you all the information directly inside the work order. It records everything that transpired from the inspector and client side. And most importantly, it logs the online contract acceptance. So in some event that you had to prove that they accepted your contract online, very easy to do from within the work order. So individuals, I just got a comment from one person saying they're having trouble hearing me. I just want to make sure that everyone is able to hear me. Is anyone else having any audio issues? Could you please let me know by chance in the chat or questions section? Okay, so unfortunately for the one individual, I can't troubleshoot that right yet, but everyone else letting me know that you can hear me, thank you very much. We'll continue along, and I'm sorry for that one individual. All right, so back to our topic at hand, it's the log of activity. Let's go ahead and review where you can access that log inside the work order. So I've opened up my account, and I'm inside of a work order. The log button is actually sort of nestled right up here in the top right-hand corner. And when you click this button, it's going to take you to a screen that looks just like this. And within it, you'll literally have everything that's transpired inside your work order. And it goes in chronological order. So if we look closer to the bottom of the screen, you're able to see when I originally created the work order, when I had added notes, and closer to the top, even when the client had accepted the contract. So here we have our column for date and time. And then we have our log. And this is the most important entry that I'm highlighting right now, which is the contract acceptance. So whenever you're worried about sending out a digital contract, which is the primary method for sending out contracts within Horizon, oftentimes people are worried about how do I prove that in case of any litigation issues, or in case they're just trying to refute that they accepted my terms. This is exactly how you can do it. So this is what Carson Dunlop uses for all of their issues to prove what transpired if the individual, say the client, accepted or rejected the terms. Perhaps the inspector came in and made a change. We can monitor all of that activity directly through here. So it's one of the things that I want everyone to be mindful of. And in case you're wondering what transpired and when, go check the log. It will record everything. Now, if you have individuals helping you, so you have an agent, like an administrator, working and they're scheduling, and you also periodically go into the work order, it's going to log each of you so you can see what they've done, what you might have done, and ultimately the client has done as well. And again, that's the log of activity, folks, within your work order. Real easy feature that everyone should be aware of and put into practice. So another quick hit tonight, folks, is feature 2, and that's our complaint callback feature. Whenever you have an issue with a client, they've called in, they've vocalized their disdain from something that transpired during the inspection, well, we've devised a way for you to log that information directly inside the work order. This means you don't have to use an external source to track your complaints and their resolution. It also helps ensure that you go through and effectively meet the needs of your client and whatever the demands of them are. So I encourage you to utilize this anytime you have a complaint. This callback feature will allow you to quickly and easily track your ongoing complaints. Oops, just went behind a screen. It's going to allow you to effectively track your ongoing complaints. It allows you to ensure a resolution has been met, and you can actually even analyze your callback data to see if there's a trend. Let's take a look at how you can review and fill out a callback complaint. So again, I'm opening up my work order, and in the top right-hand corner, not necessarily just where the log button is, but a little below that, we have our callback function. Whenever you press on the callback function, it's going to take you into a new screen. And here I've actually logged a recent complaint. So starting from the top, we have the date of the callback and then the status, which in this case is active. And you're able to create a log, basically explaining what the issue was. We can indicate who reached out to us and the number that they called by. So we have a very comprehensive form here that we can use to fill out the nature of the complaint. As we get a bit further into the callback, we can actually go in to isolate where the issue was, if it was dealing with a specific system, or in my case, in the other, we had water leakage. If you've attempted to reach back to the client, do a callback of your own. You can log the nature of the callback. If you've happened to do a revisit where you re-inspect the property, you can put in the corresponding details here. And ultimately, as you can see near the bottom, we can even log the lawsuit information, and if we have to issue a refund of any sort, even the amount. So it's a complete tab that you can use to fill out every aspect of the complaint and the resolution process. I would encourage you to actively use this, and obviously when you're done, you just click Save and Close to log that as a complaint. All right, so we've talked about two quick features here, and let's jump into our third. So our third feature, which is related to Horizon Mobile, is the photo gallery that we've recently added. And it's actually a new feature alert. So we've updated Horizon Mobile to version 2.96, and with it, introduced the ability to select photos from your phone's gallery and allow them to basically insert directly into the app. What this means is you can now take a photo from your phone or tablet outside of Horizon Mobile and then import the photos into the app at a later point, which is great for inconvenient spots like a damp crawl space or humid attic. You can make your observations while taking photos and compile them into the report when you're back in a more comfortable setting. This also means you can reuse photos for multiple items, and it works with all items in Horizon Mobile: descriptions, limitations, recommendations, and even my items. So to recap, this is great for inconvenient spots where you don't want to sit and fiddle with the mobile app and fill out the entire recommendation. It gives you the ability to also reuse photos in multiple areas, and it works with any item in your database. This was actually one of the most requested items on our recent survey. So for our mobile users and attendants, we hope you make good use of this feature. Let's go ahead and look at how to use the photo gallery. Now, because we have two versions of Horizon Mobile, Android and Apple, and the icons are different for both, I'm going to demonstrate both. First is going to be the Android version of Horizon Mobile. So I'm at the very last screen of making a recommendation. And if you've updated to version 2.96, you may notice this little notification appearing on screen when you go into your recommendation, telling you that you can long press on a photo button from your device's gallery. So once we get past that notification, you can see here that we have our two camera options at the bottom right hand of the screen. The first is Photos, and that represents the ability to take a standard photo. And we have Photo Plus, which allows you to take an annotated photo. For this demonstration, I'm just simply going to use the photo option. Now, what you need to do is you need to tap and hold your finger on photos for approximately 2 seconds. Upon doing so, you'll be brought to a new screen like this, where you have the ability to select from your phone's native gallery or any apps installed, such as Google Photos. You also have the ability to set one of the galleries as a default by tapping this option first. For myself, I like to use my phone's native gallery, so I'm going to go ahead and access that. Once I've accessed my phone's gallery, I have the two photographs I've taken from today, and I'm going to go ahead and select this photograph. All I have to do is tap on it, and I'm brought back to the last screen of my recommendation. You may notice that my Photos button in the bracket, it now has a 1, indicating that I have one photo tied to this recommendation. I can repeat the process to add a second or subsequent photo if I wanted to, but when I'm done, all I do is tap Save and the entry is created. Real easy to do. Alternatively, you can also use the gallery options from the search screen. So many people utilize the search by keyword function versus navigating through the house systems to make their recommendations. And here I've put in 2 words, granule loss, and I have 3 corresponding matches on screen, the third of which is the one that we're dealing with. So just like before, I'm going to press and hold on the match for approximately 2 seconds. As I press and hold, I'm going to eventually have access to a menu. In this case, there's 5 options. And I'm going to use the Gallery Plus option. By selecting Gallery Plus, I'm now able to choose a photo from my gallery and then annotate it with a circle to highlight the defect. Let's go ahead and choose between our native gallery and any apps. I haven't made one a default, so I'm just going to go back to my native gallery. And then I'm going to choose this photo. Upon doing so, I have the ability to annotate. Now I've saved us a couple seconds by already annotating the photo, so you can see the 2 markups there. And when I'm done, I simply save, and that photo is added into the recommendation. And you can see here again that it shows that I have 1 photo stored with the item. Save my work, and I've now successfully utilized the photo gallery option on my Android device. Swapping over to Apple, the layout pretty much the same. The only difference is when we come to the camera icons, they're actually shaped like a camera versus the word photos. So we have 2 different icons at the bottom right-hand side of the screen. And the first camera with a white lens represents the ability to take a standard photo. And the second one is where we can annotate the photo, adding a circle to highlight the defect. Just like we did for the last one, I'm going to use the standard photo option. Now, when I'm using an Apple phone, it allows me to access my camera roll, my moments, or any albums I might have established. For myself, I'm going to use my camera roll, and again, I'm going to select from the image I took earlier today. Using the Apple version, it doesn't show you how many photos are currently tied to the item once you're at this recommendation screen. But all you have to do is tap Save, and the entry is created in the report. When we're at the house system screen, we also have access to the search function by tapping on the magnifying glass here, and we can mimic what we did in the Android version by typing by keyword. Now, I like to type out the entire word, so I've written granule loss, but remember that when searching by keyword, you can use as little as 3 characters of a word to achieve the same result. So I could use GRA and LOS to find granule loss, but if you're in the habit of typing it out like I am, or dictating so it gives you the full word, feel free to do so as well. Again, we have to press and hold for approximately 2 seconds on the desired match. In doing so, it will give us a menu with our 5 options. We're going to again use the Gallery Plus option so we can annotate the photo. And you'll see that it allows us to again choose from our moments, camera roll, or any albums we might have created. I simply use my camera roll, and then I choose the photograph that I'd like. We'll again have to annotate the photo, and I've saved you an extra step, and all we do is save when we're done. So as you can see, utilizing the new gallery option is incredibly easy, regardless if you use Apple or Android. Literally, all you have to get in the habit of doing is long tapping, or like I like to say, long press on either of the respective camera options, and you'll be able to take a photo from your gallery. Once we save our work, we've now successfully reviewed how to use the gallery on both Apple and Android. Now, another feature that relates to Horizon Mobile, and in fact it's our 4th on the list, is the ability to take a title page photo inside the app. Many people aren't aware that there's actually 2 methods you can use depending upon your internet connection. When you're online, we have an option that will automatically upload the photo to the report's title page. And when you're offline, it'll be stored in a placeholder until you're back at the report writing screen. By using either method, you'll avoid having to fuss with resizing a photo at the report publishing screen, and with the new photo gallery option, you can even select it from the device's gallery. To recap, the photo automatically uploads when you're online. It will be stored as a placeholder when offline and assigned at the report writing screen. It eliminates any resizing issues because you don't have to adjust the photo for report publishing, and you even can select from your device's gallery. Let's go ahead and review both methods, and we'll start with our Android version. So I've got my app open, and in this method I'm going to do the online version. So I'm going to tap on the menu in the top right-hand corner of the screen. From the menu, I have a series of options, and the last one is title page photo. When you select that, provided that you've updated to version 2.96 of Horizon Mobile, you'll be able to choose from your camera or the gallery. In this instance, I'm going to use the camera. Now, when it comes to taking photographs, and I'm not just talking about the title page photo, but across the board, you want to turn your device sideways and take the photos in a landscape orientation. I assure you, the photos will fit significantly better in the report when you use this orientation. You'll have considerably less white space when you have two photos side by side. And you're able to fit more content on a single page as the photos aren't so tall. This means that you'll avoid some of those annoying page breaks that happen between parts of a recommendation. So always turn your device sideways and take your photos in that orientation. Now for Android users, I'm just going to tap the check mark to approve the photo, and you'll notice as soon as I approve the photo, it gives me an acknowledgement that the photo's been uploaded. Real easy to do, takes care of a lot of extra steps, and if you're using a 15 megapixel camera, it's going to make sure that it fits nicely onto the title page without you having to resize in any external program. But you're not always going to be online. In fact, oftentimes you may find yourself in a rural environment with poor to no signal, or maybe you don't have an active data connection during your inspections. Either way, we've created a backup, and it's real easy to do. What I'm going to do is go back to the search function. So here at the house system screen, I'm going to tap the magnifying glass, and again, we're going to be able to search by keyword. So I put in the word title, and that gives us one match. Now, if you read through that, it goes roofing, description, which is DESC in short, private notes, then title page photo. The private notes area, although only found under roofing description, is a placeholder area where you can store photos or comments about pretty much anything that you'd like. And when you're back at the report writing screen, easily move those photos from private notes into another section of the report, or in this case, to the title page itself. Now, we're always going to use the tap and hold or press and hold approach, where we press down on the corresponding match for approximately 2 seconds. You'll notice a sort of trend in some of the tips tonight, and that's getting into the habit of long tap. By doing so, you'll have access to a series of other options, and in this case, it takes us back to that menu we were looking at a moment ago. Now, because I want to simply take the photograph, not use one from my gallery, I'm going to go to Add Photo. Again, I've turned my device sideways. I'm going to snap a nice shot like we see on screen, and when I'm happy with it, tap the check mark. The only difference is that this time, the photo's not automatically uploaded to the title page. Instead, I'm actually brought into the item itself. See, again, we're creating a placeholder that we need to assign later before publishing. But what we're going to do here is save our work, and it's ready for us when we get back to the computer. Let's go ahead and look at that on Apple. You can see that the menu is located in a different spot, the bottom left-hand corner, although when you open up the menu, we are provided with the same options in the same order. We're going to go ahead and tap Title Page Photo. You'll see that we can access our camera or gallery. I'm going to choose my camera again. Landscape, position it nice, get a clear, crisp shot, and use photo. We'll have a little acknowledgement on screen. We'll click OK once the photo's been uploaded, and we now have successfully uploaded that photo to the report's title page. As an alternative, go to the magnifying glass so we can search by keyword, put in title, press and hold, wait for 2 seconds, and from the menu, add photo. Take your shot, use photo, and then save your work once you're back inside the item itself. Real easy to do, and for people that are using Horizon Mobile, I encourage you to actively use one or the other method depending upon your internet connection. If you aren't a Horizon Mobile user, you may even consider downloading the app for the convenience of taking that photo and having it automatically upload when you're still on site. So let's move along to our fifth feature tonight, which is Ancillary reports. In case you aren't aware, we offer ancillary reports for numerous systems and topics, allowing you to report on more than just the 9 residential systems included in your standard Horizon account. In fact, we have 34 ancillaries ranging from alarm systems to wood heat. And best of all, they're free. So consider taking advantage if you haven't already. Some of the more popular ancillaries are infrared, pools and spas, and recalls for appliance warranty recall services. As for entering your data, it's identical to a regular system and can be filled out when using Horizon Mobile or back online in the web. Plus, ancillaries only appear in published reports when filled out, so you don't have to worry about someone having an unintended tab in the report. Please note, at this time, ancillaries are added to your account by request. There will be a link to the Help Center article in our follow-up email in case anyone would like to have some enabled on their account. To recap, there are 34 free ancillaries that you can use. You fill them out online or inside of Horizon Mobile. They only appear in the report when they're used, and at this time, they must be added by Horizon support. Let's look at 3 of the most popular ancillaries in a published report so you can get a sense of what they really accomplish. Now, due to the size of the actual page, I've had to shrink this down from 100% to 80%. And as you can see, there's a bit of distortion in some of the words. That's simply a byproduct of me having to scale things down for the presentation. So the next 3 slides, folks, will be a bit grainy, and I apologize for that, but I want to get you to be able to see a full page of the ancillary. So here I'm looking at site information. This is one of the most popular ancillaries. A lot of people love to have this. And as you can see, we can talk about the weather, who's in attendance, how you had access to the home, occupancy, utilities, all the way even down to street surface and type. So it's a fairly comprehensive site info. Now, if you want this on your account, very easy to do. Just simply reach out to us. And if you are using SpeedWrite, which is the ideal method for entering in your descriptions, you can actually configure these as required items. So as you're filling out the 9 standard systems, you could also tackle your entire site information just as easy. Now this one, as you can see, is relatively plain. It's basically the description and indicating the status of the site itself. But we can get to things like recalls for recall warranty services. And here you can see that it's a bit more visual and engaging. Now, in case you're unaware, we are integrated with Recall Check and Home Binder, both of which have a warranty recall service. And so here I'm using Recall Check in this instance. And what I've been able to do is I take a photograph of the boilerplate and I associate that with the appliance and manufacturer. So in this case, the AC unit is American Standard and the furnace is Keep Right. All I have to do is take a photograph of the boilerplate as you see here. And that information is transmitted to our recall service prior to publishing, and they'll generate a report 2 days later that is sent out to your client. But this information is directly inside the report. It's a wealth of useful tips and insights into what appliances are currently there and if you need to contact a manufacturer about resolution. So if you are currently using Recall Check or Home Binder, but perhaps you're using the interior section of your account and you're filling out the inventory of appliances versus having a tab for it, consider adding this ancillary and using that instead. Another very popular ancillary is for infrared or thermal imaging, and here's a perfect example of how it turns out in the report. We have a brief little description about what standard we follow, and then we have our recommendations. You can see the FLIR images where we have an anomaly and then the representative sample beside it. And we can even have 2 FLIR images side by side when we're, say, maybe even mentioning no anomalies noted. So number of different things that we can do with ancillaries, and I would encourage you to start putting them on your account if you haven't already. We can address a number of non-standard topics with them. So the sixth feature on our agenda tonight is the ability to add illustrations to your own My Items. Our illustrations are the best in the business, and we strive to keep them current for all your needs. Remember that for the most part, no effort is needed on your behalf, as illustrations get automatically included as you make certain entries. However, not every situation is addressed with an auto-included illustration, and so being able to add them on your own is quite critical and convenient. We've made significant improvements to the illustration search, which means you should have an easier time finding and adding illustrations on your own. To recap, we have 1,700 illustrations that you can choose from and use at your discretion. They can be added to any item that you'd like, and we've improved the search to make it easier to find specific illustrations. Let's go ahead and take a moment to review how to add an illustration to an item. So I'm back at the report writing screen inside my roofing description. I have the sloped roofing material category open, and I have a My Item called Architectural Shingles selected. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the pencil beside it to begin editing. This is going to take us to what I call the edit window, and now the only thing we really need to do here is click Illustrations in the top right-hand corner. That's going to take us to the illustration screen where we can search by title or number. Each illustration has a unique number that can be referenced in the illustrated home guide book if you have one. Otherwise, you can put in a couple keywords and search. So as you can see here, I'm starting to put in architectural, and as I put in arch, I have a series of matches, and in the middle of the list, we have architectural shingles. I'm going to go ahead and select that result. Once I do, it adds a thumbnail of the illustration on the left-hand side of the screen. If I'd like to look at a larger version of that illustration, all I have to do is click on the thumbnail. That's going to pop up a preview that I can review, and then I can close the preview by clicking this button. Once we've got the preview closed and we're back at the illustration screen, I can click Add to Report, and the illustration is now added to this item in the report. However, it's only for this particular report. If I'd like it to automatically appear with this item on all future reports, I have to turn off to on. Multiple illustrations can be added to an item by repeating the process. So don't stop at just one if you feel more are necessary. And when you're done, simply click back at the bottom of the screen to return back to the edit window. You'll see the illustration appear in the gallery. Unlike illustrations that get automatically included by Horizon, any illustrations you add will appear in the gallery once the item is selected. We click Save and Close to finish our work. And back at the report writing screen, you'll notice that we have an icon of a camera beside architectural shingles, which indicates that we have the illustration successfully added to it. And when we add this item to the report, you can see it looks exactly like this, where we have our description, sloped roofing material, architectural shingles, and the corresponding illustration. Real easy way for you to add illustrations to any aspect or element of your report, and something that I would encourage everyone to use. So moving right along, we get to our seventh feature of the night, which is the ability to edit My Items. Many users aren't aware that you can edit a My Item once it's been created. There are several options to include, such as updating the short name. You can edit the message itself. You can include a URL, so you can link it to a website or perhaps a video. And you can actually make a My Item automatically appear in all future reports. All editing is done in the Profile section of your account under Section 3 Report Configuration. To recap, you can customize the My Item short name or label. You can update the message at any time. You can include a link, and you can set a My Item to appear in all future reports. Let's take a look at one of the most common issues with a My Item, and that is random characters being added to the short name. So I'm back at the report writing screen, and here's an example of a My item that I've created called General Photos. But at the end of it, it's added 107287. The reason why this occurs is I already have a My item with the same short name, General Photos. And you cannot have two identical short names for My items. The system resolves this by adding a series of random characters to the end of the second My item. And although the characters do not appear in the report, it can be confusing to look at when writing. This is one of the main issues you can solve by learning how to edit your My items. So let's go ahead and go to the profile section of my account, and within section 3 report configuration, locate My items, and to the right hand side, click add content. That's going to take you into your My items area where it's broken down by system. I'm at my roofing system, and it gives me a list of all the My items I've created. The very first one, as you can see, is our General Photos, and the short name is where we see the random characters attached to the end. Let's go ahead and click Edit to the right-hand side of the screen so we can edit this particular My item. When we're editing the My item, we have access to the short name field, the My item field itself, which is the message, a URL, and the ability to auto-include. So the first thing we're going to do is make the short name unique. And I'm going to change that to General Photos of Roof. So a great way for you to overcome this issue is to append at the end of your short name the system that you're referencing. The My item itself, the field down below, can be identical across multiple My items. So if I wanted each of the My items inside the report to simply say General Photos, that's fine. The short name, once I've modified it to be unique, will remove those characters, making it quick and easy for me to identify in the database what I'm choosing to select, but the message still remains the same. It just keeps things nice and tidy, and so that way you're not looking at all these random miscellaneous characters throughout your database. And you can see here we have a URL field. So let's say that you happen to have a video that you want to include in every report, set up a My item, add the link in the URL field, and that way you have that video readily available when you click and add that item to the report. Or going a step further, if you wanted that item to automatically appear in all future reports, you can simply check this box, and that means this item is subsequently added to all future inspections. Now, even if an item is automatically included, you can exclude it prior to publishing the report by unchecking the button at the report writing screen. Any changes you make, you have to click Save and Back to reflect those changes. And when I update the short name and go back to the report writing screen, you can see here that we've been able to successfully change the short name to General Photos of Roof. Moving along to our 8th feature of the night, and that is the ability to use show and hide items to customize your database. With this feature, you have the ability to control which categories and items are available to select within your Horizon account. If a category item within it is irrelevant, you can hide it from your database. This is especially useful for making it easier to navigate through your database, reduce the amount of time spent scrolling to find a necessary category, and make searching more accurate by reducing the number of errant matches. The changes made are reflected in Horizon Mobile as well, so your database is always identical between devices and mediums. If you're part of a multi-inspector firm, you can also establish which categories and items are available company-wide to ensure all your inspectors are using the same database to write their reports. At any point, categories and items can easily be re-added to the database to meet the changing demands of your inspections. So even if you've hid something, it can be easily re-added by repeating the process in reverse. To recap, I encourage you to use show hide so you have greater control over your database. It gives you the ability to also update Horizon Mobile and make it easier to function. You can improve the search and navigation both online and in Horizon Mobile, and you can establish it company-wide if you're part of a multi-inspector firm. Going to our report writing screen, I'm at my heating recommendations. This is one of the most popular areas for people to use show hide at. Across the top of the screen, we have our show/hide items button here. When I click that, I'm brought to our show hide for this particular report section. So whenever you click that button, It shows you only the categories and items within that section of the report. So a good example here is I'm going to scroll down to my oil furnace section. And let's say that in my area, I don't look at any oil furnaces. So I'm going to click Hide All. And in doing so, you'll see that it turns all of the selections to a lighter gray, indicating they're now hidden. And I'm going to do that for every single category here. All the oil furnace categories are now hidden. You can see they're all in a light gray. So by the time I go back to the report writing screen, or the next time I full sync inside of Horizon Mobile, these categories will be completely hidden and I'll no longer be able to access them. Here, I'm at my roofing description, and I don't want to hide an entire category. And instead, with approximate age, I'm not really comfortable with adding a specific value like 1 or 10. So instead, I would prefer to use a range like 0 to 5 or 5 to 10. But I have all of these selections here, and I want to sort of make it a little bit more manageable. So what I'm going to do is actually start clicking on the entries that I'd like to dismiss or hide, like 1 year. And I'm going to repeat that process for all of the selections all the way to more than 50 years. And you can see they're now in that lighter gray. In contrast to the entries down below, they're still in a darker gray or black. So those are the selections still available for me. Now, this is a real easy way for me to strip out entries that I'd not like to choose, but still leave the selections that I feel comfortable with using. Now we also have roof shape at the bottom, the very last category. And currently I have that entirely hidden. But let's say I want to re-add that to the database. Well, I click Show All, and in doing so, you'll see that all of the selections within roof shape now appear in the dark gray or black, and when I go back to the report writing screen, they'll be available for me to use. So it's very easy for you to be able to toggle on and off the Show Hide function. When you are done, make sure to click back to report writing, and that will take you back to the report writing screen. Moving right along, we get to our 9th feature on the list, and that is the ability to personalize the report's cover letter. You can create multiple cover letters and choose which one appears in the report prior to publishing. You can also edit the cover letter on the fly in case you need to make changes for that particular inspection, but not to the master cover letter. To recap, your cover letter is editable, both on the fly and permanently. You can create multiple cover letters and choose which one you'd like to include prior to publishing the report. And you have the ability to manage your cover letters within the text options in Profile. Let's go ahead and review how to create a new cover letter and then select it at Report Publishing. So I'm in the Profile section of my account. And what I'm going to do is scroll down to Section 2 Administration, locate Text Options, and to the far right, click Settings. Once I'm at the Text Options area, it's broken down into 4 main sections, the third of which is our Report Publishing, and the first option, Cover Letter. Let's go ahead and click that, and in doing so, it's going to give us a list of all the cover letters already created. Excuse me, I apologize. Already created. We'll go ahead and click Add New, and in doing so, that takes us to where we can create a new cover letter. The name is what appears in the pop-up list, and the body is the actual cover letter itself. We also have a sample text option in case you would like some initial text to use as a starting point. Now, I'm simply going to copy and paste from my Word document. You can see I've created the label as New Construction. I've got my cover letter body in, and I'll click Save and Back to establish that as part of my cover letters. Once I'm back at the previous screen, you'll see I have New Construction as the third letter in my list. If I'd like, I can use the sort order and use the up and down arrows to rearrange which is in position 1, and that would be my default cover letter. When we're done establishing the cover letter, we have to go to the Report Publishing screen, and we'll click Edit Cover Letter. Now, if we want to make changes for this particular cover letter, not the default cover letter that we just looked at, but rather for this particular report, like a one-off change, we would make that change at this point in time. When we click Save and Back, that change is reflected in this cover letter alone, but it doesn't change the default. If we're looking to select from one of the cover letters we've created, we click on this icon here. In fact, throughout the work order, whenever you see this icon, it represents a menu. Be mindful of that because you have full control over each of the menus you see. When I click on that, I'll have access to the different cover letters I've created. I'll choose my new construction one, and in doing so, it updates the cover letter, and then I'll click Save and Back. At this point in time, my new construction cover letter is included in the report that I generate and send out to the client. Real easy to do, and that gives you the ability to have multiple cover letters and pick and choose which one your client receives. All right, folks, that takes us to our 10th feature on the list, and that is the ability to quickly select client and agent emails once they're entered on the work order. Although a very simple feature, it provides a lot of convenience. Simply enter the individual's email once and utilize the quick select to avoid manually re-entering their email at later junctions. This is great for reducing bounce backs due to typos and eliminates you from having to refer back to another screen or page when you want to email someone. We have the three main reasons on screen. We can enter an email one time. It's available for the confirmation and report publishing emails, and it helps you reduce bounce backs. Now, inside the work order, if you go to the confirmation email tab, you click on the word to. And when you click on the word to, it's going to give you an email targets. You can select from the client or agent or even both. And that's going to populate their email address in the respective field. The same holds true for when you're publishing a report. If we go down to the Send to Report section, we don't actually click on the word to here. Instead, we click on this icon. In doing so, we can select between our client and agent's email, and that will add in their email address to the corresponding field. So it's easy for us to add in our client or agent email by simply clicking on the corresponding icon and choosing it from the list. All right, folks, so that's taking us to the end of our 10 features that we wanted to go over tonight. We are going to go over some questions in just a moment, but before we do, I want to mention that we are having a webinar on Thursday, June 27th from 8 to 9 p.m. where Mr. Carson is going to be interviewing Guardian Financial and discussing the value of payment. So we're going to be discussing financing and the economics of a home inspection. So if you're interested in learning more, I would encourage you to sign up and attend our next session. It'll be included in our follow-up email so you can register in advance, and more information will be forthcoming in our newsletter. Now, in anticipation of that event, there's actually a little poll that I'd like everyone to please go ahead and fill out. So I'm just going to launch that here for a second. And feel free to answer the poll if you'd like. You can skip over it if you don't. But what we're trying to do is get a better understanding of how you like to commonly collect payment. And we're going to be discussing all of those payment methods and options in our next session. All right, we're still collecting a few responses, and we'll give it basically about another couple seconds before we end the poll. Okay, so we've got a large number of participants voting. Thank you very much. I'm going to go ahead and close the poll at this time so we can focus on some Q&A. Thank you very much for everyone for participating in the poll. And I do want to thank everyone who has stayed for the entire presentation. So we're going to move along to a bit of Q&A. Now, I have actually about 100 questions that came through today. So there's a ton of questions here that we've got. If you just bear with me a moment, folks, I just want to sort through them to see what we can start with. So first question I have is from a gentleman by the name of Tom, where he's encountering some duplicate illustrations. How do you edit so you only have one of these illustrations showing? Great question, Tom. I just have to close the PowerPoint here, and let me jump into my account. So there's one of two things that could be happening, Tom, when it comes to your illustrations, right? If we're talking about illustrations that are automatically included, you're going to have to manually edit those out each time. So let's go, oops, sign me out of my account. Let me go into a work order here. So a good example here is exterior recommendations. Let me add a couple here about our gutters. So they're clogged, maybe we'll have loose or damaged, and maybe missing. So we're going to add a couple there, and we're going to preview the report. And as I get down, we'll get to our exterior section, and we'll get, let's make this a little bit smaller. Okay, folks, so here we've got our common reasons for leakage, and then loose or damaged, common reasons for leakage again. So I'm expecting or suspecting this is what you're referring to, Tom. If it's not, please clarify and we can look at the question in greater detail again. But when that arises, the reason why this occurs is simply the illustrations are tied to specific conditions. So the system isn't intelligent enough to realize that an illustration's already appearing in the report. It just natively drops them in when certain conditions like loose or damaged are selected. So in that situation, what you're going to want to do is prior to publishing the report, you have to go to report publishing. And yes, you have to do this each time. So it's something that every time you see a duplicate illustration you want to strip out, you have to come back and repeat this process. You're going to go to report publishing and click edit illustrations. From there, you'll have a list of all the illustrations present in the report. On the left-hand side, it will tell you where the illustration itself, and we have our include box, which I can uncheck. So in a situation where I have here common reasons for leakage, perhaps I don't want it to appear under both of them, I can make my decision that maybe I'll remove it from here. And then as I review the other illustrations, if there are no other duplicates, I can go ahead and save and back. Now you might have noticed actually my first illustration, which is already hidden, also is again repeated here with the missing. So there are going to be some duplications that you encounter, but this is how you can at least remove them on a per report basis. Now going one step further, and I'll go back to report writing, if you really hate an illustration showing up, and I hate to, I don't want to use the word twice, but let's say you really don't like an illustration showing. What I'm going to suggest you do instead is, let's say clogged, blank item. Next, clogged. Make it a my item. Save and close. Show hide. Scroll down. Roof drainage gutters. Clogged. Let me go all the way down. Back to report writing. And now, once I remove this one from the report, you'll notice that I no longer have the default clogged. Instead, I have my version of clogged. So in adding the my item, I've now eliminated the default illustrations. So whenever I add clogged, it's just adding the my item. This is something you could consider doing if you find there's a particular condition that has an illustration you really dislike and you're always editing to hide it. Consider recreating that defect as a my item. Hide the default so you only have your my item to select, and that gives you greater flexibility and control. Plus, going back to one of the features we talked about, then you could even add your own illustration in, so that one gets dropped in at your discretion. So that's how I would suggest. First, you can overcome it when you want to use the standard items at report publishing, or if you really don't want that illustration to appear in the future, consider recreating that defect as a my item. That way you can decide if an illustration is present or not. Let me know if that answered your question or not, Tom. I can always go back and circle back to that at another time. So Ricardo asked a question about what happens when the contract is accepted on site. Great question, Ricardo. Now, if we're still talking about the online contract acceptance, it's going to be logged inside of the work order. So provided that your client's accepting it digitally on site, then it's going to log itself. Otherwise, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to do two things. So here I'm inside of a work order, and the contract's not accepted. So what I would do in this instance is I would come back into the work order after the inspection, and I would flag the contract as accepted myself by clicking this button. I would then go down to my notes, and I would write, and this is just so I had something to help validate it, client accepted contract on site. One step further, I would go to report publishing. Because you got a contract signed in person, ideally you want to take a snapshot of that, or you want to scan it and create a PDF. Then what you should do is add that scanned document to your appendix right here. The appendix is basically a storage area where you can store documents like a signed contract and permanently attach it to the end of the report. In this case, I have a brochure about pest inspection, but another scenario would be that contract that you had on site. You attach it to the appendix, and then it's stored permanently as the last page of the report. So that's how I would approach it if I get a contract signed in person. Back inside the work order, I would physically, let me go to the work order. I would physically mark it as accepted by clicking this button. I would go to notes. I would indicate that in the notes. And the reason why I do this is when I go to the log, you'll see here, it shows that I accepted the contract. So it has a log here of everything that's transpiring, right? So I've indicated that. I've marked all of the information, and any notes that we log here are going to be recorded in there as well. So I can always go back, refer to the notes, and you can see everything inside of here, and we can track that. So that's how I would address getting a contract signed in person, and then how I would log it inside of the work order, and also where I would keep the contract at the end of the inspection. So Carrie asked a question about provincial authorities not allowing electronic contracts. Great question, Carrie. Now, I can't speak for the US of A, at least exclusively. Many states I can, but to Canada, I know there are two provinces, Alberta and BC, which have very specific requirements. And for those two provinces, you cannot use Horizon's digital or electronics contract. There are too many specific clauses that you have to have initialed and different requisites that we're not able to accommodate. So for Alberta and BC, you have to print out your contract or use something like DocuSign. But for everywhere else in Canada and largely across the United States, there's no issue whatsoever with our digital contract. Here at Carson Dunlop, we use it almost exclusively for our inspections, and we have no issue whatsoever. So I would encourage you just to double check with your local legislature, but for the most part, unless you're in those two provinces I mentioned, you should be fine and good to go with using the electronic contract. So the next question we have is more so about improving the number of photos that are allowed in the report. Bruce asked the question, have we considered upping the number of photos? And Bruce, great question. I bet you a number of people are curious about the exact same thing. And the reality is we recently updated it to include more photos. You can have between 150 and 200 photos in the report. Any more than that right now, unfortunately, yes, it's still limiting, but we are looking for ways to make the storage of your photos more efficient. And as that improves, we're going to be able to increase the number that you're able to put inside the report. So as of right now, you're sort of between that 150, 200 mark. And I do apologize if that's not sufficient, but we're definitely evaluating other ways to allow for more photo storage. So I can't have a better answer than that for you, but hopefully in the future, we can accommodate a lot more photos. So Jim asked a question about the site info ancillary fields. Are they filled out by the work order or do they stay blank? Jim, great question. So let me actually go into that site information here. Let me just move this over a screen. Oh, got too many things on my screen. One second here, folks. Okay, let me go back in here, back to report writing. Okay, so back at report writing, and let's go to our tab 2. So all of your ancillaries are going to be on tab 2. I'm going to click on that. And here's my site information. So you can see that it's identical to a regular system tab. You have to fill it out yourself. It doesn't draw over from the work order. That would be really convenient. Maybe in the future, as of right now, you got to enter it manually. So here we have our different fields where I could say sunny and, perhaps it was clear. Then I can go down to who was in attendance and fill it out as such. Now, one of the things that I would encourage you to do if you're using ancillaries like site information, you'll notice here I've started to make some of the categories required. And I would go through the entire list, and maybe I want all of them required, not a problem. But we open them up and we make them required. The reason why I encourage you to do this, and I'm very hopeful that everyone is using SpeedWrite already, but we click this button. It shows us all the required items we haven't completed. You may notice site info. So I'm adding to that list. I click SpeedWrite, and here I'm now filling out my site information through SpeedWrite, just like I could my roofing description or my exterior limitations. Approximate temperature today, 94. Utilities were on during the inspection. I only had those 2 left to complete, and I'm already brought to roofing, but as you can see, a quick and easy way for you to throw in your site information. So it is something you have to manually do yourself, either in the app or online like you see, but I would encourage you to add them as required items to make the data entry process a lot smoother and allow you to complete your site information at the same time you're filling out your required items to meet your standards. All right, folks, just going through some more questions here. Just give me a second, please, and thank you. Barry made a comment about how he would wish that MyItem store previous comments. Barry, we hear you. We are looking to make improvements across the board and through the entire system, as well as to MyItems. So I can't share everything that we've got in development yet, but I guarantee you we have a couple cool things in the way, or underway, I should say, that are going to improve the utility of MyItems and the whole database. So stay tuned. Guarantee you we've got more to come for MyItems and the standard items themselves. So Scott asked a question about show hide and can you use templates to add them back in? Scott, great question. I love the use of templates, and you're absolutely right. So if you've hidden something from the database, but it's part of a template, it will still drop into the report because it's part of the template. The only drawback is that you won't be able to go in and change those selections around because it's going to basically drop in the entry itself. But yes, as part of a template, you could easily have something that is hidden from the main database and only applied through the template itself. What I would do in that situation, Scott, because when you're creating a template, right, it mimics the report writing screen, you want to make sure that the item is shown while you're creating the template. Then you can hide it from the database. So that way the template has it, the database doesn't. So you want to make sure, leave the item shown, create the template, then hide the item from the main database. Carrie asked a question about show hide and does it only apply to the report you're working in? Great question, Carrie, and actually it is system-wide. So whenever you apply these settings, let me go to show hide here. So here I'm actually at site information. Let's get out of that because I don't want to hide anything there. So let me go back to the bottom here. And let's go to our first tab here. Okay, and I'm going to go under my roofing description and click show hide. So as I scroll down, let's say that I'm not comfortable with using probability of leakage. Hide all. Back to report writing, and that applies across the board. So if I scroll down, you'll see it's not in my list. And if I go to another inspection, you'll see that it's no longer in my list as well. When I full sync, that will change, will be reflected in Horizon Mobile as well. So once you sync, that will disappear from the app. Now, later on, if I ever want to re-add that category, doesn't matter which report I'm on, show hide, go to the bottom, and from there, we can click show all, and that category is immediately back in our list right here. Next time we full sync, back in the app as well. So Greg asked a question about how to add an illustration. Greg, we covered that, but I'd be glad to go over that with you again. So let's go ahead and review that one more time. Let's go ahead and just go back to my trusty architectural shingles. So how I created that, Greg, was I first selected the item, and it can be a my item or a standard item in the database. So I know I created architectural shingles. You could also call those comp shingles, matter of preference on label. So I'm just going to use my architectural. So you'll see that it already has the illustration, but we'll go through those steps again. We click on the pencil, and that takes us to the edit window. Once we're in the edit window, find illustrations top right-hand corner. So this is the illustration that's already in the report. I'm going to remove it so we can re-add it together. You can search. Now, if you have our illustrated home guide, each illustration has a specific label and a number. So I'm going to use the basically label, and I'm going to put in part of architectural. You can see that I have a number of matches, so the search has been significantly improved, allowing you to search by partial keyword. I'm going to select my result here, and it adds a thumbnail of the illustration on the left-hand side. If we click on the thumbnail, we get a larger preview in case we want to check it out in greater detail. When we're done with the preview, we close it. And now I always click Add to Report first. The reason being is that adds it to this item for this report alone. And sometimes you don't necessarily want the illustration shown across the board for all future reports. But if you do, we take it a step further. Turn off to on. Click back. We've now successfully established this as an illustration with our item. Save and close when we're done. Now, your second question was about how to add a link. And we're going to go back to Profile, scroll again down to Report Configuration, and we're going to go to our My Item section. Click Add Content. So let's say that I wanted to include a link to my YouTube channel where I store all my videos of the drone inspection. So I'm going to click Edit here, and I'll go to the web link field down here. And I'll just put in a fake link, and it's going to go to YouTube. Okay, save and back. So now that we've established that, Greg, let's go back to the report writing screen. I put that under my inspection methods and limitations. And here we have video of drone inspection. I click on that, and let's preview the report. Let's get ourselves into our limitations right here. General, video of drone inspection. Click on it, and it's going to take me to YouTube, where we can all cheer the Raptors and look forward to Toronto getting their first championship in 4 games. So we're going to close that, get back to the report writing screen, and Greg, hopefully that addresses those 2 questions you had, but if you need any follow-up, just let me know. Thank you very much, folks, for mentioning that we did not have e-transfer as an option in the poll. Great suggestion and reminder. Totally forgot about that as we were setting it up, but thank you very much for that. Definitely be mindful of that in the future. Oh, Venmo as well. Thank you in the comments for including those additional methods. I'm going to mention that to our marketing guy as well. So we're aware of that. A lot of people have e-transfer. Interesting. Thank you again for sharing that in the chat, folks. I really appreciate that. Holy cow, thank you. Whoa. Okay, I'm just trying to get past all the e-transfers. Okay, just give me a second here. So Lars has a question about when can we expect photos to appear at the top of the screen in almost like a frozen gallery or pane. Just so everyone's aware of what he's referencing, you can turn a photo gallery on by means of this button, the gallery. As you scroll down, you'll notice that the gallery begins to disappear the further you get down the screen. This is a suggestion that is on our feature request list. I'm not quite sure how far in the priority list that is, but it is something that has been added to our feature request list. And hopefully in the future, we'll be able to accommodate and have that as like a frozen pane that constantly is on screen as you scroll down. I completely agree. That is a convenient convenient tool. I would love it. I'm sure everyone in attendance would as well. I unfortunately don't have a better answer than we're still waiting, but it will be something that I'm positive is forthcoming. So I wish I had a better answer for you, Lars, and everyone else who wants that right now, but I guarantee you it is on our feature request list. So I'm just looking through some more of the comments and questions here. Just bear me a second, everyone. Also, I know that we've already exceeded the 9 o'clock time. So for anyone that's staying, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. I'm trying to be respectful of it as possible. If you're not able to stay for the Q&A, I totally understand. Our video will be available for replay as of tomorrow. You're going to receive a link to the replay in the follow-up email. So if you're not able to stay for the remainder of the Q&A, you can drop off and check back in tomorrow. But for those willing to stay and ask questions, I'm always game to answer them to the best of my ability. So Van asked a question about what appears to be the most popular sequence of reporting. Example, recommendations first, descriptions first, limitations second, third. And, Van, that's a great question. The reality is it's a matter of personal preference and should be largely dictated by your market. Here at Carson Dunlop, we have our description followed by recommendations and capped off by limitations. Other companies I know put recommendations first. I think that given your market, that should really influence perhaps how you shape the report. If perhaps you're dealing more with PLIs or pre-listing and seller inspections, sometimes putting the recommendations first can make the report feel a bit heavy-handed. You're trying to put it in the light for sale, and by listing all the defects as the very first item in the report can be a bit discouraging. So by putting the description where you're saying, hey, it's a roof that's sloped and got asphalt shingles, it can allow people to ease into the report. They're reading a bit of just general information, then they get into the actual nitty-gritty. Versus if you're primarily dealing with buyers, right? They're concerned about the condition of the home and they want to know immediately the major issues and defects. So putting recommendations first tends to appeal to them a lot more. The nice thing about Horizon is not only can you change the order of your report sequence, but you can do so also on a per report basis. So if one report you want to have recommendations first and the next one you want to have your description, it's very easy to do. In fact, if you go to Profile, scroll down to Section 3, Report Configuration, you'll find that we have changed the order or wording for descriptions, limitations, and recommendations to the far right of My Items. When we click Settings, this is where we can use the sort order to rearrange the 3 different sections using the up and down arrow. Personally, outside of when I'm training, I like to have recommendations at the beginning. Not only do I feel that it's the most important part of the report, but I also find that by positioning recommendations first, you have less annoying page breaks because the content is all focused on a recommendation. And if you have one recommendation with a photo, your location, task, time, cost, and maybe even an illustration, it all can fit on a single page. Or if you don't have any illustrations, you can actually have 2 recommendations on one single page. So that's why I favor recommendations first, as it also allows the report to fit a bit better. Now, in addition to rearranging the order of your report, you can also edit and customize the custom title. Carson Dunlop favors observations and recommendations versus just recommendations. And they also favor inspection methods and limitations versus just limitations. So if you want to update them to anything of your choosing, or perhaps mimic what Carson Dunlop does, feel free to adopt these settings at your discretion. And again, I've just rearranged the report order. If I go back and open up any of my reports and preview, the order has now been changed to reflect my recommendations first. So largely a matter of personal preference, but I would say be mindful of your market and what you're tending to cater to. Dealing with a lot of pre-listing and seller inspections, you may want to put descriptions first, allowing the reader to ease into the report. Dealing with a lot of buyers or primarily buyers, sometimes you may find that the recommendations are really the meat and potatoes, so to speak, of the report. Might as well give that to them before they have anything else. So Brian asked a question about adding custom illustrations to the report. Currently at this time, no, there is no way to add a custom illustration to the report. The only thing that you could do is this. If you wanted to reference an illustration that you had of your own, you could go to the note field and write something like "See Appendix" for illustration. I'm just paraphrasing here. I would make it a little bit more wordy. Save and close. So I've done that. I'm just going to delete this. And then what I would do is I'd go to my report publishing, edit appendix. I don't have an extra illustration, but what I would do is I'd go in and upload the illustration to the report here. Pretend this brochure is it. Going a step further, you could actually take your custom illustrations, add them to your appendix library, like I have here, and at your discretion, add any of them to the report. So that way, although they won't be tied directly to that recommendation, you could make a note reference the appendix, and that would allow you to then have that item as a custom illustration. So that's one of the ways that you could sort of work around that. And here you can see appendix for illustration, click appendix, there's my illustration. So that's a way that you could incorporate your own illustrations moving forward until we have a better solution. So Joshua asked a question about DocuSign. Unfortunately, we have no way to incorporate DocuSign at this time. We have our own electronic signature, although we are looking at other ways to allow for electronic signatures. So as of right now, unfortunately, that has to be done outside of the program. William asked a question about how to adjust our times on the log. And what he's referencing is this right here. There's also another area in the work order, but basically the log of activity here, and if we go back into the work order, is always in Eastern time. So there's no way for you to change that actually. It's the system internally logging all the information, and our developer has opted to basically default it to the Eastern time zone. Currently, there's no way to change that. If you're in a different time zone, it's always going to create the log as Eastern. Yes, that is something also on our feature request list. As of right now, there's no way to overcome that. It's not high on the priority list from my understanding, but hopefully in the future will be something that can be adjusted. So unfortunately, as of right now, it will be reflected always in Eastern time zone. Sorry about that. So Betty asked a question about a summary tab instead of adding different summaries from each area. With regard to that, Betty, anything that you're adding to, and maybe I'm misinterpreting, but anything that you go in, so let's talk about a recommendation, and this could be from a standard item or an ancillary, they'll automatically show up on your report summary. So in this case, for my thermal imaging, oops, I was using a different report. Just give me 1 second here. For my thermal imaging, if I wanted to include this recommendation on the summary, I could add to summary, and this would be added to my master summary. I just got to put it back on. So you can see here that it does include my ancillaries on the summary page itself. So I mean, the summary page, which is the third page of your report, does draw from any of the recommendations plus any of the ancillaries you may use. So I think that ideally, as long as you're clicking add to summary when you're filling out the recommendation, it's going to compile onto that one summary page. And again, that was just clicking add to summary here, or at the last screen, add to summary. If I'm misinterpreting the question, I apologize. Maybe just clarify, and I can try to explain that further. So Scott asked a question about, is there a way to email an invoice from Horizon? The only way to currently email an invoice from Horizon is to set up an email through Horizon Marketer. Now, I don't have that fully set up, I believe, but and it's going to take a little bit longer than we have. What I am going to do is just quickly point that out. And Scott, if you'd like to set up a one-on-one so we can go over that together, be glad to. but under Administration, Horizon Marketer Setup, go to your settings. So here are some of the emails that I've created myself. You can create them or we can help you set them up. But if you go to create a new email, I'm just going to use my style A. And we actually have one here. Well, this is the receipt. So actually, no, it's for receipt. I'm going to show you how to create it yourself. So create a new item. We'll go to blank. I won't walk through all of the steps here because, again, I'd be glad to do this one-on-one for you or anyone else that needs. But essentially, you would set up a Horizon Marketer email. And in that email, you can include what's known as a tag. And this tag, just trying to find it here, is invoice subtotal and invoice total. And what this allows you to do is basically set up an email that would automatically send out based around a parameter. So let's say that we have after the inspection booked, so we can say after booking, and then we could say perhaps an hour or 30 minutes. So it's something that has to be triggered based around the inspection being scheduled and then a time frame elapsing. So, let's say that it takes you approximately an hour or less than to schedule. You can let the client know that an hour from now you'll send out the confirmation with an invoice. But this is the only way at this time for you to basically create an email that would automatically send out with an inventoried invoice. Again, unfortunately, I don't have about 20 minutes to go through this in full detail, but I'd be glad to go over that with anyone that wants to do a one-on-one. So just continuing to go through the questions here. So Jarrett asked a question about ancillaries. Jarrett, so what you do is you request them and we add them on your account. If you're looking for the list of ancillaries, again, I'm going to send you a link in the follow-up email, so you'll have that in the email. But if you go into your account and click Help, if you go to Level 2, scroll down and you'll find Add-on/Ancillaries. From here, it'll give you an explanation of how to request ancillaries, and it'll show you the entire list of free ancillaries. What you'll do, and again, this will be included in the email, is you'll simply email Ariel or myself saying, please add these ancillaries to my account. And within 24 hours, essentially one business day, they'll be on your account and ready for use. So it is something that we have to add them onto your account. Once you make the request, we'll throw them onto your account and they'll be available. And at the report writing screen, you'll see after interior, 1 represents the standard residential systems and 2 represents the ancillaries, and that's where you'll have them on your account. So request, we'll get them on there and you can start utilizing them. So Michael asked a question about how to include implications in a MIDEM. And great question, Michael. As of right now, MIDEMs do not have the ability to save implications. The only way that you could establish a MIDEM with a saved implication is to create a template. The template could then store all of the fixed values of the MIDEM. So for example, we would go to Profile, scroll down to our report configuration, go to Templates, and click Manage. From here, I'm just going to edit one of my existing templates just as a byproduct. We would go into our template, and then we would essentially create the MIDEM with the implication. So here, let's say it's under asphalt shingles, blank item. We could fill out anything we'd like. So we fix our values. We don't even need to make it a MIDEM in this case because it's part of the template. Save and close. Now that we have that established, anytime that we apply this template, this is automatically going to be dropped in. So you would have to create a template with the item incorporated in it, and then you would be able to apply those values. So here I'd go to templates, I could find the template that I'd like to use, apply it, and that item is now dropped in right here. And if I click on the pencil, you'll even see it's got all the values stored. So as of right now, you would have to take the item into a template in order to save those values permanently. So Rico asked a question about being able to itemize the inspection services to show on the body of the confirmation email, as opposed to a breakdown of the whole amount. And Rico, that is a very popular request and something that is on our feature request list. I'm sort of mentioning that a couple times throughout the session because I want to let everyone know that we're actually in the process of developing a public forum where you're going to be able to go in, submit your feedback on suggestions, how to improve Horizon, so features that you'd like added to Horizon, and you're actually going to be able to vote on it. So that way you can see how popular the request is, and from the popular request, we're going to start implementing those changes as future updates to Horizon. So that's going to be something in the pipelines. As of right now, we don't have the ability to accommodate that, Rico, unless, again, you wanted to go into creating a Horizon marketer email, which means that it would have to trigger based around the work order being scheduled and then a time frame elapsing, like half an hour or an hour. But if you did want to set that up in Horizon Marketer, I'd be glad to go through that with you. So certainly, William asked a question. He didn't see the thermal imaging section on the ancillaries, and be glad to. We actually named it because you can change the name on the report. So if you want to call it infrared or thermal, not a problem. On the ancillaries, it's called infrared, but on the label, we just updated it to call thermal imaging. Be glad to label it as you see fit as well. So we're getting close to the end of the questions that have come through. We do have a couple questions related to action list, but because action list is going to take about half an hour to explain, and we're pretty well about half an hour past our anticipated end time, I'm going to show an option within help that you can essentially recreate yourself in order to establish an action list. So first thing you need to do for action list is you got to go to the Help Center. And if you search, we have a tutorial on how to create the action list as a Horizon marketer. So we're going to click on Horizon Marketer Email for Action List. And this will give you a tutorial on how to create the action list email. So what I would encourage you to do is essentially walk through these steps to create the email. Again, unfortunately, just due to time constraints, I can't thoroughly go through this with you tonight. But if anyone would like to do a one-on-one to go over action list, I have plenty of time tomorrow and on Friday, and I'd be glad, or if this week doesn't work for you, we could always look at next week where we go over action list in greater detail. I just don't want to go down a rabbit hole of poorly explaining it and then people are sort of confused by it. But in case you're really keen to get action list set up right away, your best bet is to follow this tutorial. It will give you a step-by-step on how to set up the action list and how to automatically send it out to your clients. Otherwise, if you let me know in the chat that you'd like to do a one-on-one, I can reach out to you after our session and we can coordinate something to go over action list together and I can help you get it set up. I think that's usually the easiest way outside of referencing the tutorial. So hate to seem like a cop-out, folks, but I just don't think we're going to have sufficient time to thoroughly go through action list this evening. But I would be glad to reach out to each of you and do that one-on-one. Hopefully that doesn't disappoint you guys too much, but I think that at this point in time, I'm really appreciating everyone staying for the extended half hour, but I do want to be respectful of your time. Hopefully no one's upset about the extension into close to 9:30. But yeah, I think outside of action list, we've covered pretty much every question there is. If I'm missing any, please let me know or repeat it into the question box. But I think at this point, what I can do for you, Stephen, is I'll reach out to you directly and we can go over action list together. Anyone else that would like the same thing, just let me know in the chat and I can reach out to you and we can go over that together as well. Todd, I would love to stay till 11, but my dogs are going to be quite upset, and one unfortunately has a bit of the runs. So I'm not too keen on what I'm going to find when I get home. But I love the participation, and I would be glad to answer questions for anyone at any time. And I do have a couple people that want to do a one-on-one, be glad to. So if you would ever want to do a one-on-one, folks, and you would like to go over any aspect of the program, all you have to do is reach out to myself. You can send me an email, give me a call, whatever works best for you. Outside of our group training sessions, which we do daily, I'm here to help you out. So you want to learn about Marketer, you want to learn about ancillaries, you want to learn about how to more efficiently schedule an inspection, you want to do a report review together, you simply let me know and I'm game to help. And when I mean report review, folks, I'm not an expert when it comes to critiquing things like, oh, you label a defect X and it should have been Y. I'm not out there to point out those things, but what I can help you with is maybe use different orientation of photos. Maybe you have something in the description that should be a recommendation. Things like that I'm on the lookout for and could give you some open and honest feedback about. So if you're ever looking to get some positive, constructive feedback about the report, I'd be glad to share whatever insights I could. And so I just want to let everyone know that option is there for all of you. You can let me know, we can coordinate a time, and all I ask is you let me know the questions in advance, so that way I can go into our session a little prepared and we can hit the ground running with covering whatever you'd like. So I see a couple people asked to set up a one-on-one. I'll be glad to send you a follow-up email after our session. Then we can coordinate a time either for tomorrow, Friday, or early next week, whatever fits into your schedule, and we can take care of that together. Friendly reminder, we do have webinars Tuesday through Friday. We go through a number of different topics. For most people in attendance, some of the topics may be a bit old hat, but if you ever want a refresher on how to schedule, use the mobile app, proof and publish reports, or just cover advanced report writing options, you can join into any of our weekday sessions. They are completely free of charge, as is all of our training. All right, I think everyone has heard enough of me for this evening. And for those that need further assistance, you've got my name, email, and phone number. Reach out to me. And for those that have asked for a one-on-one, I'm going to reach out to you tomorrow. We'll get that set up. Thank you, everyone, for the positive feedback and constructive criticism. I really do appreciate that. We're always looking to improve our webinars. And next month, I hope that everyone is able to attend and listen to Alan and Aaron and Ben from Guardian Financial discuss the benefits and options of financing. Bruce, my good man, I've added you to my list. Everyone who said they want a one-on-one, you're going to get an email from me tomorrow. We're going to coordinate that and we can get ourselves underway. So definitely there to help out. I have got plenty of time tomorrow, plenty of time Friday, and my whole week is open for you. So at this point, everyone's asked for one, you'll receive an email. Anyone who hasn't asked for one but would like a one-on-one, just shoot me an email and we'll take care of that together. Thank you everyone for your attendance. Have a safe and happy evening. Many good inspections ahead. And thank you for choosing Horizon. Have a good evening, Al.